everything recording? Yes. Okay. Hello. Welcome. My name is Megan. I am starting off a series that I'm calling Mad History Mondays. I don't know if I love it yet. It might grow on me. We'll see. I might end up hating it and then I will change it. But right now, it is going to be called Mad History Monday, where I talk about just wild occurrences in history, or really just things that I just find absolutely interesting. And since it's almost Christmas time, I'm starting off with a Christmas themed episode where I'm going to talk about how Christmas began and how it evolved into what we now celebrate in the United States. I'm in the mood. I've got my Christmas earrings in and I'm wearing red. I love Christmas, and if you do too, come along with me on this very summarized journey of the history of Christmas. Let's get into it. Christmas celebrations have drastically changed over many years. Many cultures around the world have had festivals in the winter to celebrate life, and this has happened throughout history. In Neolithic times, it is thought that people often celebrated the midwinter solstice. That's the shortest day of the year, and it is in December. A settlement called Durrington Walls was a settlement near Stonehenge, and it is thought that many people traveled to this destination back in the day to participate in the ceremonies there. People celebrated because they knew that they could look forward to longer days and the sun, more sunlight ahead. They often had feasts where they would just eat a lot of things like pork and beef and fermented milk and cheese and barley beer. They often used like really decorative pottery during these celebrations, and some people even think that they may have like exchanged gifts. They would usually be like bronze daggers or other weapons. Rich people may have worn like gold jewelry, gold hair, buttons, hair jewelry. There would probably be singing. They might have played like musical instruments. It is said that they would jump over bonfires, and the bonfire would represent the sun. This is how they would honor their sun god and encourage him to return and make the days longer and sunnier and better again. Then if you look into the Norse people, like in Scandinavia, they celebrate Yule from December 21st through January. They would celebrate with the burning of the Yule log. Fathers and sons, like the men of the household, would go out and just get like a big log, and they would bring it in and they would set it on fire, and it would burn throughout the whole celebration. And they would feast until the log burned out, which usually took more than a week. The Yule log is now a popular dessert or pudding. I have not had it. Have you? I might mess up this word. The Saturnalia was a pagan celebration that the Romans participated in during midwinter as well. This began on, I think, December 17th, and it lasted for days. It was a celebration of the Roman god of agriculture, Saturn. This is a very interesting celebration because a lot of the rules and etiquettes that are put into place in society are like reversed. So masters become servants and servants become masters. Peasants then would be like in command of the city. The rich would serve the poor. Schools and businesses were closed so that everybody could join in. Instead of the normal like white dresses and togas that they would wear, everyone wore like really bright party clothes if you had them. There were feasts, people sang, there were poems, and they even exchanged gifts, which were called sigillaria, which were little figures made out of wax or pottery. More luxurious foods were common to be served during this celebration. For example, in sort of like normal everyday beer, they would drink like imported wines. They were just having a ball. So why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? No one really knows for certain. They might say that they know, but no one really knows. There are a lot of theories out there, but I could not find one definitive answer. People just really, I guess from what I've gathered, they wanted to figure out when Jesus was born, like in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. A lot of articles that I read stated that like church officials just picked the day. They just like decided on December 25th as the day that they would celebrate Jesus's birth. They decided this at the end of the 3rd century, I believe, because it is said, they likely wanted to relate the day of Jesus's birth celebration to the ceremonies and festivities that a lot of cultures had during the midwinter or winter solstice. This would make it easier to convince the pagans to accept Christianity as an official religion. This makes sense, but then again, no one really knows. That's like the most popular theory out there. Like if it was like the same kind of celebration that they would have during winter solstice, then they could just celebrate kind of the same way, but instead of celebrating their sun god or other gods, they were celebrating Jesus's birth. Smart. It is a very gray area, so please don't attack me for not completely understanding. It is confusing. During the medieval time period, celebrations began that commemorated Christ's birth, which was called Christ's Mass. Christmas, get it? This was first recorded happening in England in the year 1038. People fasted up until December 24th. They celebrated for 12 full days of Christmas. In these medieval celebrations, it was common to have roles reversed, similar to that of pagan festivals. Slaves would become masters, like in the Roman Saturnalia. They also celebrated with customs adopted from the pagan Saxon midwinter feast of Yule. This included burning of the Yule log. They also started to decorate their houses with evergreens, such as like wreaths and garlands. Here's a quote from London in the 12th century. His name was William Fitzstephen. Quote, "Every man's house, as also their parish churches, were decked with holly, ivy, bay, and whatsoever the season of the year afforded to be green." They had these big feasts with fancy food. They drank extra strong ale. And they would sing carols and dance. They also exchanged presents. There were like really crazy parties at this time. People just partied. It was very close to the celebration of Mardi Gras. Like that's what you can think of when you think of how crazy these parties used to be at Christmas time. Basically, people would go to church and then get really drunk and party in the street and then eat a lot and play like really crazy games. Each year, a man would be crowned the Lord of Misrule. He would be in charge of ordering the Christmas games to be played. These games, wow. They ranged from very tame to like very rough. An example of a tame one that I've read about is called Hot Cockles. Terrible name. But in this game, a person would be blindfolded and they would rest their head. Usually they would rest their head on another person's lap so their booty was in the air. And then in the room, a person would spank them or slap them. I've heard both versions. When the person was blindfolded and their head was down, so they couldn't see who spanked them. And then the person that was spanked would have to try and guess who spanked them. If they got it right, then the person who spanked them would then next be the victim. Yes, they use the word victim. Now that is a tame game. And it used to be considered to be played by children, and then it was said to be played by adults, and then it was said to be played by the poor, but it has been shown that it was a game amongst all classes. Now, we're going to get into Tudor Christmases. I love learning about the Tudors. Just so wild. Anyway, during the Tudor Christmas celebrations, we see that the celebrations become more full on at Christmas time, but we also see that they become like a little less rowdy. Like I said, medieval Christmas celebrations were just like, they at least became less rowdy with the upper class. Going to church was still a big event, obviously. There were still parties and feasts, and they still decorated and exchanged gifts and danced. This game was around for a while. I did not look up when it first started or when we first read about it in history. It's called King of the Bean. On the 12th night, which was January 6th, a bean was baked into normally like a cake or like a fancy bread, like a bean. And then they would slice up the cake and give each slice to the people, and then whoever found the bean in their slice of cake, they would be crowned king of the bean. And everyone would have to imitate them. When he drank, everybody else would drink. If he coughed, everybody else would cough. But then the person would also be like in charge of creating games like for the night and like being the host. There were a lot of different versions of this game that I read about. Like one said that there would also be a pea baked in the cake as well, and then whoever got the bean would be the king, and whoever got the pea would be the queen. And then another version stated like if a woman found the bean, she would have to pick her king. A woman couldn't entertain people. What? During the Victorian era, the Christmas that we see today really took shape. Christmas became less rowdy amongst most people, and it became a more family-centered event and celebration. It was warm and mushy-gushy and quieter and like family and love. Happy birthday, Jesus. Sorry, your party's so lame. Queen Victoria and her husband Albert and their 9 children were a very big reason that Christmas changes took place. Albert actually introduced the Christmas tree to England in 1840. He brought it over from Germany. It was a tradition to decorate Christmas trees in Germany already at this time. So he brought it over to England, and it just became very popular after that. I mean, it just like spread. People were like, oh, wow, a tree in your house decorated with lights and pretty things. Wow, I should do that in my house. And that's how it all began. Another thing that became really popular at this time was gifting presents and opening them on Christmas Day itself. Children often received more modest gifts like candies and like dried fruits and stuff. But you know, if you were of higher society, if you had more money, these children might have received newer toys, like a new toy train or like the latest technology that was coming out. Many Victorian families went to church, and then there may have been like a special event or a special service. And even some popular carols that you've probably heard of actually began during the Victorian era. One example was Come All Ye Faithful. And Boxing Day, have you heard of it? I had, but I did not even know what it was until I researched this. Wow, Megan. On Boxing Day, which is December 26th, the day after Christmas, a Christmas box, or what a lot of people know as like just a Christmas present, maybe with money or leftover food or gifts, were often given to servants or tradesmen by their employers to basically say thank you for a great year's work. And servants and other working class individuals were often given Boxing Day off, the 26th off, because if you worked as like a server in like a higher class family, you more than likely worked on Christmas and served them their meal on Christmas. On the 26th, the servants got to go home and spend time with their families, and they often had Christmas boxes to bring home to their families as well. Traditions like Christmas cards and Christmas crackers, Christmas pudding, and like eating the Christmas turkey were elements of Christmas that really sprouted during this time period. Do you like turkey more? I don't really love turkey. I'd rather have ham. That doesn't matter. Remember A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens? Yes, I hope so. He actually promoted charity. He promoted the tradition of more wealthy people or better off people to give food and presents to the poor. The importance of charity and kindness were really shown in this tale. Christmas was not a major holiday in early America. I know we all want to think it was, and just imagine how beautiful those old houses would have been with their beautiful decorated Christmas trees and wreaths and garlands and singing families and tables of food. But no, it was actually banned in the Massachusetts Bay Colony by the Puritans from 1659 to 1681. In 1659, the General Court of the Massachusetts Bay Colony made it a criminal offense to publicly celebrate Christmas or anything related to Christmas. They declared that, quote, "Whosoever shall be found observing any such day as Christmas or the like, either by forbearing of labor, feasting, or any other way, was subject to a 5-shilling fine," end quote. So basically, you were going to be fined if you were caught celebrating Christmas. So as mentioned before, the Christmas celebrations at this time in England were very rowdy and eccentric, right? We're backtracking a little bit. It's the 1600s. So in England, the celebrations were rowdy and crazy, and people were just like drunk everywhere and singing and laughing and having a good time. And it's believed that this was one of the reasons that the Puritans just like hated Christmas. They just hated it, other than the theological reasons for them not liking it. They did not want it anywhere near their people. A 16th century clergyman named Hugh Latimer wrote, quote, "Men dishonor Christ more in the 12 days of Christmas than in all the 12 months besides," end quote. Lots of sinners out there. The Puritans took the Bible literally because the Bible did not mention any specific season or day of Jesus' birth or any celebration of Jesus' birth. It should not be celebrated as Christmas on December 25th. Quote, "Puritans believed Christmas was basically just a pagan custom that the Catholics took over without any biblical basis for it. The holiday had everything to do with the time of year, the solstice and Saturnalia, and nothing to do with Christianity." What? I mean, they're not wrong. But like, why couldn't you still celebrate Jesus' birth, right? Like, I feel like that's a pretty good reason to celebrate. I mean, you don't have to drink and gamble and be crazy and be sinners. People still celebrated Christmas at this time, but they really did so like in their homes quietly with just their families. The Puritans really just like didn't want disorder. They didn't want people out, being crazy like the tradition was back in England. It really wasn't until the 19th century that Americans started to adopt Christmas back into their lives and start celebrating Christmas again every year. They would start celebrating Christmas outwardly. Merry Christmas! Shout it from the rooftops. I'm just kidding. I don't know what they did. I wasn't there. Christmas actually wasn't an official holiday in the United States until June 26th, 1870. The reason for this, from what I've gathered, after the Revolutionary War, English customs were just like vastly unpopular in the United States. And the celebration of Christmas was just one of these unfavored customs. Now, again, families still celebrated Christmas, but it wasn't a nationally celebrated holiday like it is now, and people celebrated rather quietly and intimately with their family and friends. But in the 19th century, Americans started to embrace Christmas again. In the early 1800s, America was kind of going through some rough times. And people were highly separated by classes. Unemployment was high. Many people were homeless and hungry and starving and just trying to provide for their families. People just worked, and children as young as 6 were working in factories at this time because there weren't really any laws to protect them. Gang rioting and crime were really high at this time, especially in New York, particularly during the Christmas season. What? Why on earth would there be so much going on at Christmas, you guys? In 1828, New York's City Council instituted the city's first police force because of a Christmas riot. This actually led to certain members of the upper class society to begin to alter the way that Christmas was celebrated in America. They wanted to just get away from all the shenanigans that went on around Christmas time. Also, many Christmas traditions that we see today were brought back by immigrants. A lot of different traditions and customs were just all being brought together in the United States, such as Christmas trees, decorating Christmas trees, decorations with evergreen wreaths and other plants around the house. The Christmas turkey became very popular. People started sending out Christmas cards, and of course the exchange of Christmas presents on Christmas Day continued to be a very popular activity. Americans also created their own ways of celebrating Christmas to kind of fit the changing times, which, as you can see, happened throughout this entire story that I'm telling you. I think the main one that people would think about is Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho! Santa Claus can be traced back all the way to Turkey's Saint Nicholas, who gave away all of his wealth, and he traveled around to help the sick and the poor. This was around 280 AD. In the late 18th century in New York, Dutch families gathered to honor Saint Nicholas for the anniversary of his death. They referred to him as, I'm not going to get this right, but Sint Nicholas, or Sinterklaas for short. Sinterklaas, I don't know. Which then eventually transformed into Santa Claus. Sinterklaas, Santa Claus, Sinterklaas, Santa Claus. In 1822, Clement Clarke Moore wrote a poem called An Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas, which is known today for its first line, "'Twas the night before Christmas." And if you know the poem, then you know it depicted Santa Claus as a really jolly man that delivers presents to children in his sleigh pulled by his flying reindeer. The Santa that we know, Santa with the white hair and the beard and the big belly, dressed in a red and white coat, came from cartoons drawn by a cartoonist, Thomas Nast, who you might have heard of for his political cartoons. He was a political cartoonist. The most famous image of his was from 1881 of Santa Claus. I love that picture. It's he's just smoking and has this really creepy doll hanging from his side. Yeah. There's way more into that cartoon. It's actually very interesting if you want to go look that up. Thomas Nast, 1881. There's a much longer history of Santa Claus, but if I go into that, I will be sitting here for another hour. So you can look that up on your own. Today, it is still very common to practice these Christmas traditions that have been passed down and changed over many years. I decorate a Christmas tree every year, and my family and I get together and we wear Christmas pajamas or ugly Christmas sweaters. We drink hot chocolate. Some people prefer eggnog. We watch Christmas movies. We make Christmas cookies and decorate them, and sometimes we send out Christmas cards if we get it done in time. If not, There's always next year. Is there always next year? No. On Christmas Day, we say a prayer and then we eat just like a phenomenal meal that my family is just amazing cooks. My mom and my sister are just wow. Anyway, the dinner, my family likes ham more than turkey, but sometimes we'd make both. We'd have like turkey, ham, green bean casserole, pies, potatoes, gravy, so much more. I mean, if you live in the United States and you celebrate Thanksgiving, you know what I'm talking about. Like, we just have crazy, we would always go to like the church service, but we would always go on Sunday, like the normal day that you go to church. I know a lot of people that go to church on Christmas Eve or like even Christmas. They usually have like special service for the holidays. And then on Christmas morning, everybody would get up, especially as like a little kid, and you were so excited and you woke your parents up super extra early, and I bet they just like loved that. And then you sit around the Christmas tree and open presents. I know that one tradition I do is every year I buy a new Christmas tree ornament just to remember that year's Christmas, I guess. A lot of families have their own unique Christmas traditions. I think that's just so cool. Isn't it just so wild to think that we do some of the same things at Christmas time that they did like forever ago, and we still do it and we still have a great time. The main change in Christmas over the years from what I researched was how it went from this really rowdy, eccentric, crazy festival, and now it's more of a family-centered event. You get together on Christmas with your loved ones and your friends, and you exchange gifts and you eat a big meal. I guess some people still like sing carols and stuff, but that was never my family's thing. I know that some people today still get pretty rowdy and drunk on Christmas. That's okay too. I don't really think that we could have Christmases like they did in the medieval times, because I think a lot more people would just get arrested immediately. Don't be those people. Just like get drunk on New Year's. It's only a few days later. Honestly, I'm not judging. Do whatever you want. I mean, freedom. I do, however, wish as a society we didn't focus so much on like present giving and gifts. It's kind of exhausting. Oh my god, can I have the new PS5 for Christmas? That's really what I want. I deserve it. Don't you love me? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love receiving gifts and I love giving gifts. I just wish it wasn't the main thing. I think most of us could agree that Christmas is really about being with family and just enjoying what you have and enjoying other people's company and celebrating the birth of Jesus. Whether you're religious or not, that's what it's really about. But it's so interesting to see all of the different traditions and customs come together and how Christmas is celebrated today. If there was one tradition that really interested you, I encourage you to go and do some of your own research, because this was so much. Like, there's so much information out there and so many things that contributed to the evolution of Christmas. I could not sit here and talk about it. I would be here all day long, and I don't really think anybody wants to listen to me for that long. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I hope you enjoyed this. This was really fun for me. I learned a lot. I really did not know much at all about the history of Christmas. I will be uploading every Monday, hopefully, maybe. If you have anything that you would like me to research and talk about in future videos, please leave it in the comment section down below. I would love to hear it. I have many ideas of my own, like just like weird things that I'm super excited to dive into. Wow, I sound like the biggest nerd. I really just want to learn more. Yes, I hope you like this video. Have a great Christmas or whatever you celebrate coming up. Remember what it's all about, and have a fantastic rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you next Monday. Bye!